We're going to go ahead and get started here today. We're going to be continuing our study of the book of Proverbs. We're going to be in Proverbs chapter 11 today, and it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a fun time. Last week I shared with you that I'm not real sure how I'm supposed to teach these Proverbs, right? And I still don't know. I asked you for feedback. Nobody gave me feedback. So I thought, well, maybe I fumbled through it. I'm going to try something a little different today. And I welcome your feedback on this as well. But we're going to get into it, and I trust that you'll find some value with this. Now, some of you may know that at one point, I entered a contest and I lost. And when I lost that contest, I became president of CARE, the Cochrane Revitalization Board, right? And because we're having church in the park in a couple of weeks, that started based on an invitation from CARE a few years ago. Yesterday was Lions Park cleanup day. And, went there for all sorts of things to be ready for that, to be ready for that yesterday. And just as an aside, we painted picnic tables yesterday, so plan on a picnic just bring your picnic basket on Church in the Park Day. But I needed to get the word out. I needed to say, hey, we're going to be doing some things. We welcome your help. And so I said, well, let's do this on social media. I'll do Facebook Live. So I went and I did Facebook Live from my office the other day. And if you saw it, and you've probably seen me do lessons from this, but let me see if I can word this poorly. I try to put on that I'm intelligent by having books behind. Have you ever done that?
All the time.
All the time. It's like, sometimes, if you come over to my house, I'm just going to stack a dozen books up, lean on it, But I did this, and I came upstairs, and Brendan says to me, she says, Dad, I saw your video. I so like all those books in the background. They make you look smart. And I thought, that's exactly what I'm going for, sweetheart. I need all the help that I can get, right? I need all the help that I can get. Now, I've started doing this because years ago, somebody told me that successful people have libraries. And at the time, my library was Spider-Man, and I didn't really think that translated well. So I said, I better invest in a better library. So I've been picking up all these books over the years. And if you see it, I would bet at least 90% of the books on my bookshelves I haven't even opened. All right, full transparency. I got them up there. Just because I would like to read them. I think there's value if I was to read them, but I haven't done that. But I'll tell you this, every time I walk by those books, I do feel smarter. I'm like, I bought that book, right? We're going to continue our study of Proverbs today, and hopefully this makes us smarter. Right? That's what we're going for. But there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Similarly, it's not just having the books, it's getting something useful from the books, right? And so I need to knit together a few things for our time here this morning. And one of our earlier lessons in this study, we talked about how Jesus was the embodiment of wisdom. We had a lesson on Solomon being the wisest man to ever live. That's easy for me to say. But we also have to recognize that Jesus was the embodiment of wisdom. And so the things that he did were show us how to live a wise life. Before we're all done with this study, we're going to see that Solomon was wise, but he didn't always live a wise life. So one of the things that I'd like to point out, and if you've been with me for any amount of time, you've seen me do this, right? I write Christian on the board, and I underline the IAN, And I tell you that the IAN at the end of any word means, anybody remember? Like.
Christ-like.
It means one who does. So an electrician, IAN, is somebody who does electricity, right? A statistician is IAN at the end, is somebody who does statistics. Well, when we put IAN at the end of Christ, it's somebody who does what Christ would do. Okay, now that's a very simple definition, but the idea is that we should be doing the things that the embodiment of wisdom did. I hadn't made that connection before, but like what Jesus did was wise, right? And so we want to do wise things, or at least we should be striving in that direction, right? We should be striving in that direction. And I think we would all agree that this is a process, right? We don't instantaneously become wise, or at least I haven't. Maybe you have, but it's this process. So when we start out, it can be quite difficult to do the things that Jesus did. Anybody agree? This is the interactive part where you say amen, right? Amen. Yeah, it can be hard. It can be hard to do that, right? And I think I've shared this idea with you before, and it's on it's a learning model on the 4 stages of learning. You go from a stage of ignorance, and from there you go to a state of awareness. From there you go to a state of competency. And from there, I guess I'll come down here, is proficiency. Now, I'll use your times tables, right? At one point, you went to school and you learned about adding and subtracting, but there was a day that you leveled up, right? There was a day where it's like you can multiply, and now there was a time that you didn't know that existed, right? There was a time that you were ignorant of it, but then you become aware that there's a different way of doing math, and it's called multiplication. Well, you had to get good at it. Right? You had to study your times tables, maybe you did flashcards, whatever it turns out to be. But you would get to a place where you would be competent at it. And now there's people out there, like Barb, who you can throw a math problem at, and she does it in her head like that, and you're impressed. Right? I can't see Barb. I hope she's smiling. Like, you've probably seen somebody like that, right? They do some, and they're so good at it. It's called proficiency, right? And that can happen with all of us with any number of things, right? There was a time when you didn't know it was important to brush your teeth. Believe it or not, you didn't know it. And then you become aware, maybe you go to the dentist and they say you have a cavity and you need to be brushing your teeth, right? And you become aware of it. Well, then the first times you do it, it's a little awkward. Like, I'll give you this challenge. My guess is that you do this so automatically, and it's that you brush your teeth with your right hand or your left hand exclusively. That's my guess. The next time you're brushing your teeth, I want you just to say, time out, let me try to brush my teeth with my other hand, right? You're proficient with one hand, and the other hand, you're somewhere in between. Like, doing that it's awkward. Right? So it's this process, and you go from here to here. It is a process. Now, what I want to be sure to call out, and I think I've called this out before, there's an absolute world of difference between awareness and proficiency. There's a lot of people who think that just because they are aware, they must be proficient, and that is not true. Just because you know the right thing to do does not mean that you do the right thing or do the right thing well. And we've encountered people like that, right? Maybe that describes us a little too closely sometimes. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to, like right here, they are not equal. Just because I know the right way to eat doesn't mean that I do that well. Just because I know it's important to open my Bible doesn't mean I do it well. Just because I know it's important to be in prayer doesn't mean I do it well, right? You can be aware of that, but you may not be really good at it yet. It's a process. It's a process, right? Now, I'm going to suggest to you that we probably all struggle with this knowing the right thing to do and not doing it. And maybe it's our Bibles, maybe it's prayer, maybe it's eating right, maybe it's exercising, maybe it's checking in on your neighbors. Anybody know the right thing to do but hasn't done it? Like today? This week? Like, some of you are lying to me. Like, I can't see very far, but there's probably a few hands that could go up, right? Now, a couple of weeks ago, I gave you this other bit, and this is a math equation, but it's information plus application equals transformation. You know, it's information, this is the awareness, right? But it's the application, it's doing these things that leads to the transformation. And there's a lot of folks that think that if I just had the information, everything would be hunky-dory, and that's not true. That's not true. I can know what's wrong with my car, doesn't mean I can fix it. Right? I can know that I shouldn't eat the second cinnamon roll that Mrs. Bob made for me. I'd like to think that she did it intentionally, but it was a leftover, but like it tasted so good, it's like the love was there. And like eat the second one, right? Like you know, these are things that we need to recognize. We need to know the right and wise things to do. So we can know what Jesus did, but we can also not do those things that Jesus did. Right? It's the application, it's the practicing that moves us from awareness to competency and ultimately to proficiency. And it's application that changes knowledge to wisdom. Application changes knowledge to wisdom. So as I was preparing this lesson and given just so many of the conversations that I've had, let's see if I can knock over the flowers here. Maybe I'll just erase this. Oh, and we need to put the flowers back further next time. That's information. We'll see if we actually apply it, right? You know. So, given the events of this last week, like I said, I've been talking to people all over the country of pharmacists that are looking at being displaced from work, and it's a really challenging time out there. And I find myself on more than one occasion talking about the law of cause and effect. Now, you know me, or at least most of you know me well enough at this point to recognize that there's times that I need a little help, right? There's times that maybe I say something brilliant, but like it doesn't stick with me. But over the course of this week, I found myself talking about cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, which is, the primary law that God used. Right? We've done a study on this before. In the beginning, God spoke. That's the cause. What's the effect? Creation happens. Right? There's all these causes. And if you've been around me long enough, you've heard me say that every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause. And maybe we don't always know what that is. Sometimes it can be really, really complex. But I like to give you this example of you could take some flour and some milk and some eggs and some butter, and you could mix it up and you could put it in a pan and put it in the oven, and there's at least a chance that a birthday cake could come out, right? But you also know that if you took some toothpaste and dental floss and an old shoe and you mix that up and you put it in the same pan and put it in the same oven, there's no chance that a birthday cake's coming out. Right? It's the cause and is related to the effect, right? So as we gain knowledge and we apply it, it turns into wisdom. It becomes the way we act. It becomes the way that we behave. And you've seen me do my stick man before, right? And we've talked about like those things get built in down here. So as you learn knowledge, and you keep learning that, whenever that happens down here, it becomes wisdom, and then you act in a wise way. But you got to practice it. Same way brushing your teeth, same way baking a cake. Apple pies. We haven't talked about apple pies in here, but we're getting close to summer. I need to get on an apple pie kick. I do. So that's where we are. So with all this stuff in consideration, I want us to consider that when wisdom becomes the cause, what type of effects should we expect? When we are doing wise things, what should we expect to come from that? And I'm going to suggest to you that would be something that we will call good fruit. I think we talked about that last week, maybe the week before. Just this connection of what it is that you are producing. So I want you to turn with me to Proverbs chapter 11. We're going to read through Proverbs chapter 11. And what I want to encourage you to do is I want to encourage you to have your ears or your eyes sort of filtered through this idea of cause and effect. Look for, like, what are the causes in these Proverbs? What are the inputs? What's the flour and the butter and the eggs and what else? Milk that goes into making a cake. And then we'll also get some examples, which is the toothpaste and the dental floss and the old shoe. And it's going to give you a result that you don't want. So let's take a look at Proverbs chapter 11. Starting in verse 1, it says, "The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Wealth is worthless in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. The righteousness of the blameless makes their paths straight, but the wicked are brought down by their own wickedness." You start to see any of these connections? You start to see those? Okay. The righteousness of the upright delivers them, but the unfaithful are trapped by evil desires. Hopes placed in mortals die with them. All the promise of their power comes to nothing. The righteous person is rescued from trouble, and it falls on the wicked instead. With their mouths, the godless destroy their neighbors, but through knowledge, the righteous escape. When the righteous prosper, the city rejoices. When the wicked perish, there are shouts of joy. Through the blessings of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked, it is destroyed. Whoever derides their neighbor has no sense, but the one who has understanding holds their tongue. A gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. For lack of guidance, a nation fails, but victory is won through many advisors. Whoever puts up security for a stranger will surely suffer, but whoever refuses to shake hands in pledge is safe. A kind-hearted woman gains honor, but ruthless men gain only wealth. Those who are kind benefit themselves, but the cruel bring ruin on themselves. A wicked person earns deceptive wages, but the one who sows righteousness reaps a sure reward. Truly, the righteous attain life, but whoever pursues evil finds death. The Lord detests those whose hearts are perverse, but he delights in those whose ways are blameless. Be sure of this, the wicked will not go unpunished, but those who are righteous will go free. Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman who shows no discretion. The desire of the righteous ends only in good, but the hope of the wicked only in wrath. One person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. People curse the one who hoards grain, but they pray God's blessing on the one who is willing to sell. Whoever seeks good finds favor, but evil comes to one who searches for it. Those who trust in their riches will fall, but the righteous will thrive like a green leaf. Whoever brings ruin on their family will inherit only wind, and the fool will be servant to the wise. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and the one who is wise saves lives. If the righteous receive their due on earth, how much more the ungodly and the sinner? So did you catch anything? Did any of those stick out where you can see this is what goes in and this is what comes out? This is the cause, this is the effect. Did you see some of those in there? So I started off by telling you that I'm not real sure how to teach these Proverbs. So I'm going to try a different way today. What I want to do is I want to take this idea of cause and effect, but I also want to take the idea that Jesus was the embodiment of wisdom. And so what I have way too many verses over here. And I don't know that we're going to get through them all. But what I tried to do is I tried to find some examples of the proverb as it's executed in the gospel, so that you would be able to see, hey, this is what the proverb says, and let's find an illustration, ideally from the life of Jesus. And maybe that helps connect it a little bit better. If you like this, tell me. Maybe we'll do more of it. If you don't like it, tell me. We can do less of it. Again, I'm trying to figure this out. I put this together last night, and it didn't seem like this much as I was putting it together last night. As I started writing all these verses on the board this morning, I was like, oh my goodness, there's way too much here. So I don't know if we're going to get through it all. If you want to come up and take a picture before we're done, whatever. But this is not an exhaustive list. This is just giving us a first pass to give us some perspective on that. So, we okay? That makes sense? Have I thoroughly confused you with what we're looking to do? So, Proverbs 1:1. The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. Right? So what's the cause? The cause is dishonesty in dealings. And what's the effect? Disfavor from the Lord. Now, does that ring a bell for you anywhere in the New Testament? Turn with me, if you will, to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21, verses 12 and 13. I would guess you've heard this story before. Jesus at the temple. Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. It is written, he said to them, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers. Right? You had dishonest people. Right? And what's the proverb say? The Lord detests dishonest scales. And what did Jesus do? Turned over the tables, chased them out. Right? Here is Proverbs 11:1 in action, New Testament. Have you seen that before? Have you made that so this is, I don't know, maybe I kind of like this right now. Right? This is the first one. You may not, but I sort of thought this was a cool thing. Right? Let's look at Proverbs 11:2. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. So the cause is pride, and the effect is disgrace. Gospel of Luke, chapter 18, verses 9 through 14. It says, to some who were confident of their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else, what does that sound like? Sounds like pride. Jesus told this parable. He said, 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I am not like these other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, and even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give 1/10 of all I get. But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. See that connection? It's sort of cool. All right. Moving right along, Proverbs chapter 11, verse 3. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. What does it mean to be what does duplicity mean?
Double-minded.
Double-minded. Telling a couple of different stories. So that's what we have. So the integrity of the upright guides them. So the cause is integrity, and the effect is guidance and protection. That's what we have here. Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 43 through 50. It said, the next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, follow me. Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nazareth, can anything good come from there? Nathanael asked. Come and see, said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said to him, here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. How do you know me? Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Then Nathanael declared, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Jesus said, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that. Then he added, very truly I tell you that you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Jesus commended Nathanael as a man in whom there is no deceit. He's identifying his integrity, right? And the cause was integrity, and what was the effect? Guidance and protection. Proverbs 11:4. Wealth is worthless in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. So the cause is trusting in wealth. The effect is the inability to withstand judgment. Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verses 16 through 21. And he, Jesus, told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, You have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then you will get what you have prepared for yourself. This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. Jesus warns against hoarding wealth without being rich towards God. Again, the cause, trusting in wealth. The effect is the inability to withstand judgment. Jumping ahead a little bit, Proverbs chapter 11, verse 9. Is it 10:27? That's what this clock says. I'm just trying to. Okay, maybe we'll do two more. Proverbs 11:9, right? With their mouths the godless destroy their neighbors, but through knowledge the righteous escape. So the cause is harmful speech, right? The godless with their mouths destroy their neighbors. That's harmful speech. The effect is destruction, right? But through knowledge the righteous escape. The godless will not escape, right? That's the connection. Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 and 22. You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, You shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. And anyone says, You fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. So Jesus taught that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Right? It's important how we talk to people. Right? Do we approach people with harmful speech or speech that uplifts them? Verse 12, Proverbs 11:12. Whoever derides their neighbor has no sense, but the one who has understanding holds their tongue. So the cause is people who mock others, and the effect is that it reveals the lack of wisdom. Matthew 26, 62 and 63. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you? 63. But Jesus remained silent. Whoever derides their neighbor has no sense. Whoever makes fun of their neighbor makes no sense. But the one who has understanding does what? Holds their tongue. Right there, the proverb, you see it. Let's jump ahead. So a couple other examples here if you want to look at them. Proverbs 11:13. I connected that to Matthew 18, 15, 16. Matthew chapter 18, verses 15, 16, and 17, if you want to look at that. The cause is generosity, and the effect is prosperity and mutual refreshment. You want to jump ahead. I think I may have messed that up. I did mess that up. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 13. A gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. So the cause is gossip, right? The effect is betrayal of trust, right? That's pretty straightforward. Jesus teaches in Matthew 18, verses 15, 16, and 17, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault. But between the two of you, If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen, even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector. The emphasis was on reconciliation and private correction, right? So Proverbs 11, 24, and 25, this is on generosity. And we find that the example in Luke chapter 6, verses 37 and 38. And let me do this last one. Proverbs 11, verse 30. The proverb reads, "The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and the one who is wise saves lives." So the cause is righteous living. The effect is life-giving influence. You save others, right? That's where we are. We'll connect that to the Gospel of John, chapter 4, verses 39 through 42. This is the woman at the well. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. "He told me everything I ever did." So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them. And he stayed 2 days. And because of his words, many more became believers. They said to the woman, "We no longer believe just because of what you said. We have now heard for ourselves, and we know that this man really is the Savior of the world." Jesus' conversation with the woman at the well led to many other people in town believing, right? And it just showcases the impact of a righteous testimony. So with that, we've covered a lot today. Again, I welcome your feedback on this format. Should we try this a little more? Avoid it. I welcome your perspectives on that. But I started off telling you about my library, my bookshelves with all the books on them, hoping that somehow it would make me smart, right? That's where we are. But I think we can look at some of these proverbs and we can see the example of Jesus and how he takes information, he takes these proverbs, and because he was the embodiment, he shows us how we can apply these lessons in our lives. Fact of the matter is I can walk by the books on my shelf all day long and I will not gain wisdom. I can hope for it, but that doesn't happen, right? It doesn't come just by being near. It does not happen by osmosis. It does not matter that you have a Bible in your house if it never gets opened. It does not matter. You can have a stack of books. You can't learn anything from them if you don't open them up. What changes us is applying what we learn and how we move from awareness to action, from awareness to competence and proficiency. So with that, I want to encourage you to have that posture of humility so that you may gain wisdom. I want to encourage you to let your integrity guide your steps. And I also want to encourage you with your generosity, that it may refresh you and that it may refresh others. With that, I think that's where we will wrap up. Just to, again, go back to let wisdom be the cause of the things you do, so that the effect of good fruit can be seen in your life and in the people around you. So with that, I will put the last 3 letters on the board, ACT, right? Based on what you've learned today, is there some action you will take? Is there a change you will make? And is there something that you learned today that you can teach to somebody else for your benefit and for theirs?